and analytical thinking. So this book, distills a lifetime of work of the author on the engine of human thinking, that is cognition, highlighting our cognitive biases and showing both the brilliance and limitations of the human mind. So, as I said, system 1, as we discussed yesterday, system 1 is the part of the brain that acts intuitively and suddenly, often without conscious control. So, you can experience this system in action when you hear a very loud and sudden sound. So, for example, if you hear a very loud and sudden sound, so what will you do? And you can immediately, the response, you can immediately and automatically redirect your attention to it. This is system 1. This system, the system 1, is the legacy of millions of years of evolution, according to the author. So, the vital advantages lie in the ability to make quick decisions and judgment. If you have to make quick decisions or judgments based on your past experiences or your stored memory, so that is what that decision is taken by system 1 of the brain. So system 2 is what we mean when we imagine the part of the brain responsible for an individual's decision making, reasoning, and beliefs. So, system 2 controls conscious activities of the mind. So, one is involuntary, system 1 is involuntary, and system 2 is voluntary choice we make, voluntary decision making. So, this system 2 controls conscious activities of the mind such as self control, choice, and intentional focus. So, the next thing is explained, the next concept which is beautifully explained is law of least effort. That means the system is lazy. The system, our brain is lazy, and inertia can lead to mistakes and affect intelligence. How, when system 1 and system 2, if do not coordinate it properly, author explains that can lead to, can affect our intelligence. So, what is law of least effort? So, a general means in general, law of least effort applies to cognitive as well as physical exertion. That means the law asserts, it goes like this: if there are several ways of achieving the same goal, people will eventually gravitate to the least demanding course of action. So, in the economy of action, effort is a cost, and the acquisition of the skill is driven by balance of benefits and costs. Laziness is built deep into our nature. What author is trying to explain is, if there are many ways to achieve a goal, so we will choose what is, we will often choose the shortcut to reach that goal, or the least demanding course of action, where there is only less course of action to be taken to reach that goal. Wherever we can save our efforts and thinking, cognition, so brain tries to do that, because laziness is built deep into our nature. So, for example, in the book there is an example. See, to see how the two systems works, author tells us to solve the problem. So, suppose a bat and ball collectively cost 110 rupees. So, and the bat costs 100 rupees more than the ball. That means the bat is 100 rupees more expensive than the ball. So, how much does the ball cost? If I ask you now, so the price that comes to the mind is instantly what we do is we say the ball could cost 10 rupees. And 10 rupees, this is the result of the system 1, because this is automated system and it's working. But if you think the answer is wrong, if you try a few seconds and then try to solve this problem, the answer is wrong. The ball cost 5 rupees. The question was asked that the bat costs 100 rupees more than the ball. So if the ball costs 5 rupees, the bat would cost 105 rupees. The collective would be 110. Or if according to what generally our minds think, the cost would go up to 120 rupees. If the ball would have costed 10 rupees, then the total cost would have gone up to 120 rupees. So what just happened is the impulsive system 1, which takes over and automatically responds by relying on gut feelings. This is called gut feelings, but it responds too fast. So this is what happens if we try to respond too fast. There is always a chance to get it wrong. So normally when faced with unclear situation, system 1 would call system 2 to solve the problem. But in the bat and ball problem, system 1 was fooled. So it looks at the problem too simple and mistakenly believes it can be mastered. So the bat and ball problem exposes our instinct for lazy mental labor. So we do not solve the problem. That's why we, without even thinking, we said that people usually tend to say that the ball costs 10 rupees. So when the brain is active, we usually use only the minimum amount of energy that is sufficient for the task. This is also known as the law of least effort, as I said, because reviewing answers with system 2 uses more energy, the mind won't do so. So when it thinks just using system 1 is enough. So the next is laziness is harmful because the practice of system 2 is such an important part of human intelligence. So this improves human intelligence. If we start using more of system 2, this will improve human intelligence. So research shows that doing system 2 work requires focus and self-control, making us smarter. So the ball and the bat and the ball problem, shows this, portrays this, because our minds could have double checked our answers using system 2 and thus avoid the common error. So the next concept discussed is we are usually on autopilot mode. So making us susceptible to, there is a concept called priming. So to understand priming, so what is priming? So in order to understand what is priming and what is the autopilot effect we are always in. So see, let's take the example. For example, if we are given a word SO-P to fill in the blanks, SO-P. So, well, a lot depends on the context. So, what is priming here is, what if you were told to think of the word eat before you were asked to fill in the blank? So before me asking you SO-P, I was talking about eating something. So eating means your brain directly goes to the word soup. So maybe you would think that the word is soup, S-O-U-P. However, if you were given the word, if we talked about shower before I asked you the question, SO-P would be soap instead. So this is called priming. The context which is given prior, and how our minds are primed to think in specific ways. The same word can be soup and the same word can be soap, but the context given prior is, it depends on the context, what is given in prior. So, this is priming, prior context, whatever is given. So, the next concept discussed is biases. So, what is bias? We in the beginning of the session, I said this book talks about cognitive biases. So, biases are the systemic patterns of deviation from normalcy or rationality in judgment, often stemming from the use of heuristics. We discussed about heuristics in detail in yesterday's session. Heuristics means mental shortcuts. So, one example of bias also we have discussed yesterday, different kind of biases. So, one example is confirmation bias. So, what people do is people tend to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs. So, for instance, you have a political affiliation, XYZ affiliation, and you might primarily consume the news sources that align with your political affiliation. So that is confirmation bias. You're always biased towards the news source with your political affiliation. You might have seen this in everyday life. So this is a good example of confirmation bias. So the next concept explained is prospect theory. So this is, developed by, Kahneman and another author, Amos Tversky. This theory, who has co-authored this book. This theory suggests that people make decisions based on potential value of gains and losses rather than the final outcome. So, prospect is people, usually people tend to make decisions based on the potential value of what is the loss, what is the gain, what is the loss, rather than the final outcome. That means, for example, if people have choices like, you will get a guaranteed $500, prize money, or a 50% chance of winning $1,000. So many people will choose the guaranteed $500 due to aversion of loss, because if they don't win, they will lose the $1,000 anyway. So if they are playing for $1,000, but there is a choice given that you will get guaranteed 500 rupees. Let us consider this in rupees. So the total prize money is 1,000 rupees, and you are guaranteed 500 rupees. 500 rupees and a 50% chance of winning 1,000 rupees. So many people will choose guaranteed 500 rupees because you don't want to lose the money. So you're not interested in the 1,000 rupees prize money. You are interested in, many people would choose the option 500 rupees. So this is called prospect theory, because you keep the profit and loss in mind rather than the final outcome. Next is framing. We have already explained, framing effect. The way, framed, the way options are presented or framed can significantly influence decisions. So, how the options will be presented to you, that will significantly influence the decision. That means a medical treatment, for example, described as having a 90% survival rate is more appealing than one with a 10% mortality rate, even though both are equivalent. So, how a concept is presented. So, if I today mention that the treatment I am giving is 90% successful, That will be more appealing rather than me doing it, me giving, me giving it out as 10% failure. So that 10% failure will not work out, even though both are the same. 90% success rate and 10% failure. So 90% success rate is more appealing than 10% failure rate. So this is framing effect. How do you frame a concept? How is it presented? That will influence decisions, significantly. Next is the next concept explained is regression to the mean. So extreme events tend to be followed by less extreme events. So this can lead to misinterpretations of causality. For example, if a student performs exceptionally well on one exam, so it's likely that their performance on the next exam will be closer to their average. So regression to the mean is, yesterday also we discussed that if a player does exceptionally well in one of the matches, maybe in the next match he or she will do average. In the similar way, if the student performs exceptionally well on well in one exam, it is more likely that their performance on the next exam will be closer to their average. So that is regression to the mean. We could have observed that once if a player or a student does really well, all expectations are on that person, and in the next, because of that regression to the mean, what will happen is that person will perform closer to the average. So next concept explained here is overconfidence. So we all have heard of overconfidence. So the concept explained here in overconfidence is, people tend to have too much faith in their known knowledge and abilities. So we all know what is overconfidence. So here it is explained that people usually tend to have very much faith, excessive faith in their knowledge and abilities. That means studies have shown that people consistently overestimate their own driving abilities, believe themselves to be safer drivers than they are actually are. What people do is people consistently overestimate. So one of the examples is a person who has a driving license is overestimating himself or herself, believing that they are safer drivers than they are actually are. So in the same way, maybe they think that they are exceptional performers, but they are actually not, or they are actually thinking or have far too much faith in their own knowledge and abilities. So this is also a part of system 1. So hindsight bias, the next concept explained is hindsight bias. What is hindsight bias? Is after an event has occurred, people tend to believe that they would have predicted or expected the outcome. This we have discussed yesterday in the biases. So after something has happened, maybe it is good, or sometimes, most of the times, it is bad, people tend to always say that मैंने तो ये पहले ही कहा था, ये तो होना ही था, I predicted this to happen. We always believe that. So for example, after a stock market crash, many people claim that they saw it coming. So if there is a stock market crash, even if they don't make any significant change to their investment beforehand, they say that, this time I thought, stock market would actually crash. So this is called hindsight bias. Even though you are getting that feeling, that this would not go very well, you feel that the outcome was predicted, you don't make any significant changes to the for in this case investments. That means if you saw it coming, you could have invested in, made changes, withdrawn the money and invested in something else. But even though if you think that you predicted that this will not work well, you didn't do anything much. So the next thing is endowment effect. So the next concept is endowment effect. Endowment effect is people tend to value things they own more highly than they would if they did not own them. So if you own a rare collectible, a rare thing, rare antique, you can presume, so you might be unwilling to sell it for its market value because you attach a higher subjective value to it. If you buy an expensive or a sophisticated luxury item, or an antique, or a car, a luxury car, or a home, you will not be willing to sell it for its current market price, because you will always attach a higher value, a higher subjective value, that is subjective to, maybe I can attach another value, you can attach another value, we always tend to attach a higher subjective value to it. So that effect is called endowment effect. The next is anchoring effect. This also we had discussed yesterday. People tend to rely too heavily on the first piece of information they encounter when making decisions. That means in negotiations, the starting price proposed often has a strong influence on the final agreed upon price. So if there is a neelami of the house going on, a house is being mortgaged. So if the starting price is announced as 50 lakhs, suppose, that price, the first piece of information, you think that it is the starting price, so on that, it always has a strong influence. That means even though if that house does not cost 50 lakhs, or even though it costs more, it may be high or more, but the price, you think, you fix that is the price of the house, so I should get it, how much ever, how well the negotiation goes on is always expected, but that price would be registered in your mind. So when making decision, so you will go with 55 lakhs, maybe 60 lakhs maximum. So that 50 will be a constant number, even though that house do not value for 50 lakhs, or it values more. The 50 lakhs, the number which has been told, will will have, the first piece of that information that we encounter, we make it, we tend to rely heavily on the that information when making, decisions. So the next is, we'll talk about some practical examples or case scenarios. See the system 1 and system 2, how the system 1 and system 2 operates here. So a scenario while driving a car. So when you are driving a familiar route, system 1 handles tasks like steering and maintaining speed effortlessly. If any sudden hazard happens, system 2 kicks in for, rapid decision making. So while driving a car, how system 1 and system 2 works. System 1, what it does, if you are familiar, if the route is familiar and you are a good driver, driving is familiar and route is familiar, so what system 1 does is, it is automatic, so it handles tasks like steering, maintaining speed effortlessly, driving effortlessly. Then if suddenly, if you are about to encounter an accident or a sudden hazard, system 2 kicks in for rapid decision making. So the next is, Next example is chess grandmasters. So experienced chess players can glance at a board and quickly identify strong moves. So if you're experienced in any game, let's consider here chess. So experienced chess players can glance at a board and quickly identify strong moves. System 1. However, when faced with complex positions, they engage in system 2 for deep analysis. Usually, chess players can glance at a board and quickly identify the strong moves. However, when they face with complex, challenges, or they are faced with complex situations, then the system 2 comes into play for deeper analysis. So the next for heuristics, that means mental shortcuts. So buying a house, if we take a scenario of buying a house, something. So when selecting a home, people use heuristics, like that means mental shortcuts like location, number of bedrooms, or curb appeal to quickly narrow down options. You quickly narrow down options based on the past experiences or the memory you have in hand, like the location, the number of bedrooms. You don't think for it. You are sure with the location. You are sure with number of bedrooms you want, or so the basic details you're very sure of. There comes into play the first system, and to get into the detail of the price, the cost, then the second system 2 kicks in there. Next is in the medical diagnosis also. So doctors might use heuristics based on symptoms and common illnesses to quickly arrive at a preliminary diagnosis. Preliminary diagnosis is made by the doctors by common symptoms, illnesses, signs and symptoms, okay, and investigations. But they should follow up with thorough examination. With examination and investigations, the system 2 kicks in. First, they will have an empirical preliminary diagnosis made, but that should be followed up by the system 2. So here system 1 and system 2, how mental shortcuts will help, and then the system 2 would kick in. So this, and next is for the biases. As I said, the political beliefs. So people tend to seek out information and sources that confirm their existing political beliefs, reinforcing their biases. That means you consume the news channel which is aligned to your political beliefs usually. And a second example is in the investment decisions. So for investors, they might hold on to losing stock, hoping for a rebound, that is loss aversion, even when it's wiser to cut their losses. That is prospect theory. So investors also, for they want to even they can uses by using the prospect theory, they can cut out the investment into the losing stock. But what they do is they have invested such time, effort, and time, effort, and interest in that stock. They do not want to take that out, even though it could have been wiser to cut their losses. So the next is prospect theory. As I said here, if we take an example of gambling, so gamblers often prefer smaller guaranteed payouts over certain larger ones, showing aversion to potential losses. As I said already, that if you are offered, if the final price is 1,000 rupees, if you are offered 500 rupees without playing that, without even have to play that game, people will choose that 500 rupees because they don't want to lose that also. Totally losing 1,000 rupees, instead of totally losing 1,000 rupees, people want to earn that 500 rupees. The decision is based on the losses and profits. So the next case study would be economic policy. In the economic policy making as well, governments may prioritize policies that reduce unemployment over those that stimulate economic growth, reflecting a preference for avoiding losses. So if they have to choose between to reduce unemployment or stimulate economic growth. Governments or may choose, to their policies to reduce economic unemployment over the stimulation of economic growth. So this is reflecting a preference for avoiding losses, because if people are employed, then they think that it could be a slow but economic growth as well. So it may be slow, but it is an economic growth as well, rather than the actual stimulation of economic growth. So framing effect. So we talked about framing effect. For framing effect, health messaging, that means, as I already said, a healthcare campaign emphasizing the positive benefits of exercise is more likely to motivate action than one highlighting the risks of inactivity. As I mentioned, here a healthcare campaign, if I tell that if you do the if positive benefits of exercise, if I mention, it is more likely to motivate people to get into that healthcare campaign than one highlighting the risks of inactivity. If I mention risks of inactivity, that will not catch much attention. But if I mention it, positive benefits of exercise, both are same. But how do I frame the health campaign is it depends on success depends on how do I frame the health campaign. So healthcare campaign emphasis and on the legal judgments as well. So different phrasing of a legal question can lead to varying verdicts, demonstrating the powerful impact of framing in legal procedures. Even in legal procedures, it is said that phrasing of a question in a different way, legally question in a different way, that means different phrasing of a legal question, this will lead to varying verdicts. So this portrays the powerful impact of framing. What is the impact of framing? How to frame something to get maximum results. And regression to the mean, this we discussed. An example could be sports performance. So an athlete who performs exceptionally well in the game is likely to have a performance closer to their average in subsequent games. So next is employee evaluation. The same for the same second example. So managers should be cautious about making extreme judgments based on single outstanding or poor performance review. Suppose if you are making a judgment, if you are giving a promotion to an employee based on just a single outstanding performance review, the next could be very average, or you are demoting a person with by only a single performance. The next could be an outstanding one. So you should be cautious or avoid making extreme judgments based on only single performance. So the next is overconfidence. Overconfidence, the example is stock market investing. So investors may overestimate their ability to predict market trends, leading to costly decisions based on misplaced confidence. So they might overestimate their ability. As I said, overestimating is overconfidence. Next is in the entrepreneurship as well. So overconfident entrepreneurs may overestimate the potential success of their ventures, leading to risky business decisions. So overconfidence or overestimating, what happens is that will lead to risky decisions. So risky business decisions wherever. Next is hindsight bias. So for this a scenario is historical events. After a significant event, suppose it is an election, people tend to believe they predicted the outcome even if their earlier views were different. So after an election, people would you have heard people saying that मुझे तो पता ही था यही पार्टी जीतने वाली है. I know that this party would definitely win the election. I knew that. I predicted that. I thought that. So this is hindsight bias. Maybe their earlier views were different, but after the election result is announced, everybody is gonna say that I predicted that surely this party only wins, could win. So the next is stock market predictions as well. So as I said, analysts who successfully predict market movements may receive undue praise even if their predictions were based on chance. So sometimes chance based predictions also will receive, undue praise. So, oh, I predicted this stock would do well. That was not very analyzed one, but by chance they have predicted it right. Next is the endowment effect. So, for endowment effect, the example would be online auctions. So, sellers often set higher prices for items they own due to the sentimental value attached to them. So, see, in online auctions, as I said, we have a subjective sentimental value that is higher to the actual price of that product because we attach a sentimental value to it. The next is negotiations. In negotiations as well, we use, endowment effect. That means a homeowner might overvalue their property in negotiations because of their emotional attachment to it. Next and last is the anchoring effect for today. So in the anchoring effect as well, negotiating salaries, the initial salary offer in a job negotiation can strongly influence the final agreed upon salary. So if the HR says the salary is 20,000, you will keep that 20,000 in mind and ask for 25,000 or 30,000, and your salary could be anywhere between 25 to 27,000. So this 20,000, the initial salary offer, that will strongly influence the finally agreed upon salary. Likewise, same retail pricing as well. A high initial price for a product can create a perception of value even if the cost is much lower. So if the cost is lower, if they have applied a high initial price of the product, if the product MRP is 100 rupees, that will create the value that is 100 rupees. You may ask for the product for 95 rupees. The product might actually cost 70 rupees, but you pay your or our perception is based on that 100 rupees, that this product might cost 100 rupees, so I will ask for 95 rupees, but the actual product is maybe 65 or 70 rupees. So this the all these examples and case studies highlights how the concepts play out in various real life situations, providing variable insights into the intricacies of human decision making and cognition. How do we think, how do we analyze, and how do we make decisions? So this book is contributes very much into that. So we have I have so many other things to discuss as well from this book. Many other concepts to discuss. We will discuss that in the next session, and you can always mention your key takeaways, and if you have any other things or interesting insights that you have read the book and you have found it found it very helpful or useful, then please do mention in the comment section and let me know. Thank you for staying tuned. Namaste.